Well, thanks for joining me again for the Author Stories podcast, where I bring you the story behind the stories and the storytellers. Today, I am super excited to have Meg Gardiner on the show with me today. I, when I first was talking with your publicist and I saw the new book coming out, Heat 2. This is the prequel and sequel to that fantastic 1995 movie Heat, that is emblazoned on our pop culture, consciousness. Um, I said, "Oh, that is so cool." But Meg Gardiner, uh, she wrote the Joe Beckett series, and like I was kind of more stoked about that than Heat 2 until I got to reading the book, and it's a phenomenal book. But anyway, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
Well, thank you. Meg, we begin each show with the same question, and that question is this: what is your first memory of wanting to be a writer or storyteller?
We can return to to my kindergarten days when I didn't even know how to write and was drawing stories with crayons. If you want to go back to the story of Pearl, the farm horse, who was treated badly by the farmer and managed to escape over the fence. So I guess I was into thrillers even before I knew what they were. I had a lot of detours along the way.
That's a new subgenre, barnyard thrillers.
It's wide open, everybody.
Wide open. Boy, you make your mark there. Did that desire follow you? Kind of, and if I'm not mistaken, you practiced law first before becoming a published author. Is that right?
I did. I did not. I mean, I always loved writing. I wrote for the school paper in high school. I did not major in English lit or creative writing. My degree was in economics, and then I still wanted to write, and had a heart-to-heart with my parents, who were extremely supportive of me and encouraged me to do whatever my heart desired, but did point out that I would be needing to keep a roof over my head while I was finding a way to write. So perhaps I would like to do that while practicing law instead of maybe washing dishes at 2 a.m. at some diner. So I took their advice. I went to law school. I practiced law in Los Angeles for several years. Then when I had 3 small kids, I switched to teaching at the University of California, Santa Barbara. I taught legal research and writing there, which was fantastic and amazing, and was writing short stories, magazine pieces, knew I still wanted to try to write, and was actually when my husband's job was transferred to London, and we all went with him. The kids were finally all at least in preschool, and I had gone over without a job waiting for me, and I knew it was put up or shut up time. That if I ever wanted to write a novel, this was my opportunity, where I didn't have to commute into an office first thing in the morning. I could at least write until the school bus came. So that's what I did.
Well, some people would argue that that studying law is studying creative writing, but that's another exploration.
Yes and no. You are when you're a trial lawyer, and that's I was a litigator. You deal in stories, right? Because every legal case is a story about something that has gone awry between 2 parties, and it's literally the lawyer's duty to represent your client and present their case, their narrative, their story in the most compelling and persuasive manner you can. So you learn how to craft a compelling narrative.
Some people may see studying law, practicing law, then teaching, and then writing as a circuitous route to get to writing. And it is in some ways, but I'm of the opinion that no life experience is wasted on a writer. That there are things that you can glean from all sorts of life experiences and careers and things like that then inform you as a writer, and help in certain ways. Now, looking back on your time studying the law and then teaching, can you see that those experiences added things to your writer toolbox?
Of
And I'm
course.
sorry, they're mowing grass right outside my window. I
No,
apologize.
they may turn up in this neighborhood as well, so we will just talk over them if they do. But um, I knew that law would be a career, a profession where I did a lot of writing, and you need to do it. You need to do it well, so that and what you write matters. It has real world consequences immediately for your clients. I can write a thriller where the earth explodes, and hope to get readers gasping as they turn that page. But when you are trying to convince a judge or jury that your client is in the right legally, that has immediate real world consequences, and you learn to pay attention to that. And teaching, I really enjoyed it. I love the kids. I love the students, and love being able to craft my own courses. When you have to figure out how to teach something, and I was basically given carte blanche to create a course, and then you give assignments and you have to give feedback. You quickly learn all the bits of craft that you didn't know you needed to understand explicitly. So you have to figure out what's going on so that you can give constructive feedback to students so that they understand how to strengthen their own writing. And that was a wonderful, wonderful way to learn about how to strengthen my own writing. And it was circuitous, but again, I was keeping the roof over my head, over my family's head, and writing on my own stuff whenever I could. And the biggest shock came when I decided that I was going to try to write a novel. And I assumed that because I knew how to write legal briefs and taught writing, that it would be a snap. And it wasn't.
And
it's
hilarity
a whole thing. You have to learn the discipline. You have to learn a whole new skill set. It's like switching sports.
Right. So you're in London and you're writing that first book. China Lake was your first book that was published, and just you dropped you onto the scene with fire and fireworks and all of that. But I understand that China Lake was not the first book that you had written or had attempted to write. Tell us about this book that had a huge cast and was a murder mystery where no one got murdered.
Well, yeah. See, I see you've talked to a lot of other writers and know that this is how it goes, as well as hearing of this story that I wanted to write a caper novel and knew how to write, had so much fun writing banter and dialogue and some crazy scenes with some real wacky characters. And I just thought it was going terrific. But it was when I told a friend that it was they said, what is it? Is it a science fiction, a romance, literary fiction? I said, no, it's, I guess you'd call it a murder mystery. And then they said, so where's the murder? And that told me that was a big oops. So I had to go back and revise it. And that novel was, that's a starter novel. That was a great experience. It taught me that I could figure out how to get to the words the end. And I always tell people that's really important, is to learn how to finish your stuff.
Yeah.
And it was by the time I I started killing people in the story and fixed that problem. It was strong enough that it got me a literary agent in London. And he said, now I'm going to take this out, but you'd better get started writing something else. And he was trying to shop the first one around when I gave him China Lake, and he said, we're gonna put the brakes on the first one, and I'm going to send this one out to editors instead. And China Lake was 100 times stronger because I had figured out that there was an incredibly high bar, and I had to figure out how to clear it if I really wanted to see my work in print. And took a few years, but I did.
So China Lake was the book that broke you into the industry, and is one of those hallmark books that, looking over your back catalog, it still stands extremely strong. And not a lot of first novels are able to to do that. From if you look through a lot of successful authors' back catalogs, this first ones are okay, but they got better as they went along. China Lake is a strong novel. What did you learn from that first novel that when you started writing China Lake, like what things did you understand that second time around that the first novel taught you?
That I needed an incredibly strong story, that I needed a compelling plot, that the crazy characters and the pages of entertaining banter were a start, but that's not going to carry readers from through a 300-page novel. They want an emotional experience of if you're writing a thriller, it has to thrill. You have to have some deadly disturbance, some kind of chaos that enters the character's world really right off the bat and throws their entire lives, their community, their family, whatever, out of balance and sets them out to try to stop worse things from happening. And there'd better be time pressure. There'd better be an extremely strong antagonist who has got their own goals that may be twisted and malign, and you'd better figure out how to get from your idea to leading the characters basically through hell. And that's what you've got to do to your characters in a thriller. You want them to have to fight their way through to whatever goal it is, to restoring justice or saving the puppies or reaching the top of Mount Doom, whatever you're talking about. And right. You've got to make sure it's not easy. That's and that the readers care about these people. So it's creating curiosity and concern for the characters, putting them in jeopardy, and then putting the pedal down. And it took me a while to figure out how to do all of that in one book. And when I did, it was successful.
To be a successful author in a certain genre, you need to be a fan of that genre. First off, you need to understand what people expect from the genre. And if people pick up a thriller, they're going to expect kind of a breakneck pace and characters that are in danger. And, there are certain hallmarks. We call them tropes if we want to, but you need to understand how the genre works to successfully write in the genre. What was it? This lawnmower is just crazy right here. What was it that made you fall in love with the thriller genre?
I had been a reader of thrillers since middle school, probably sneaking them off my parents' bookshelf. There was no YA category when I was growing up, so I was reading adult novels, and I loved the big global thrillers of the day. I loved the sense of, like you said, the pace, some kind of high octane journey that characters were on, and the characters were larger than life in some way, that you could relate to them, but they had skills, they had daring. They if they didn't know they had that, then they had to find a way to discover it in themselves over the course of the novel. That there were huge stakes involved, and those would be literal life and death. That it wasn't just going to be a metaphorical, embarrassment at the job. It was going to be physical life and death would be involved. And, when you're young, that's, your emotions are just overflowing. Right. You want to read all that stuff. But it was the roller coaster thrill of the suspense and the tension that really drew me to being a reader. And I thought, if I'm going to write, that's what I want to write.
With China Lake, that launched the Evan Delaney series, and Evan Delaney as a series character. When did you realize that this character was going to resonate with readers in the way that they want to read the next Evan Delaney thriller?
Well, when my publisher in London said, "Can we have another one?" You wrote China
That's always
Lake.
the best way.
Can we have another story featuring this character? And I had tried to figure out how to create a character initially. I had drawn from, she's not me, but I didn't step too far aside because I wanted to be able to portray a young woman from Southern California who's got a, how's she going to do? She's got a legal background. Okay, I know how to write about that. She lives in Santa Barbara. That's where I grew up. But of course, I made her younger and mouthier and braver, and she could run faster and jump higher than me. And I enjoyed being able to insert humor at absurd times in the stories. And I think because I loved her and had so much fun creating her and gave her heart and some kind of a spark and bravery, then that readers went along as well and really seemed to love her.
I'm glad you mentioned humor because that's sort of a hallmark in a lot of your work, is that there will be humor, sometimes irreverent, sometimes at odd places. But humor in thrillers is an interesting concept, because on the surface you would think, well, this is ill-placed, or maybe ill-advised, but sometimes you need moments of levity to let readers off the hook for a minute, because if you keep their adrenaline just spiked out all the time, then you don't have anything else to go to. But giving humor and kind of letting the reader relax for a moment, or to have a different emotion, then when you come back with the high octane moments, they hit harder.
That's
how do you think about
right.
that?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I don't write humorous novels.
Right.
I mean, if you want to do that, you can read Carl Hyacin or Janet Ivanovich and just love them to death. But I write novels that do have a lot of action, that do have a lot of emotional tension, and like in our real lives, we want a moment where we can catch our breath, where we can shake off the tension, and doing that with humor, with a few lines, with some kind of absurd little intrusion into a tense moment, that does let readers catch their breath and not feel like they're just being thrown out of an airplane and scrambling waiting for the ground to come up at them. So finding a way to insert that and to let them catch their breath, and to feel that even the characters here know that life can occasionally be absurd, and find something humorous in the depths of a dangerous situation. I love books when I read them like that, and so I tried to insert that into my own.
Evan Delaney, like you said, is based in Southern California, very, very much like you were. It was something you're very familiar with. The Joe Beckett series moved us to Northern California in a lot of those stories, and then of course with Heat, we're back in Southern California. What is it about California as a place that sort of becomes a character in your books?
Well, number one, I love California, and I know it well since I grew up there and lived there for so many years. And it's a big place, physically, population-wise, and in the imagination of America and the world. California looms large. It's iconic, and anything can go in California. And it's got mountains, beaches, Disneyland, Hollywood, Silicon Valley, Yosemite.
Literally has it all.
And the characters that you can find in California, nobody will be surprised to see larger than life characters in a novel set there. So it was, and especially when I was living in London, I enjoyed at least being in California in my head sometimes on the beach when it was cold and rainy in the UK. So, and then of course Heat and Heat 2 have a lot of the action is set in Los Angeles. The movie, the 1995 film, takes place entirely in LA over the course of just a few weeks. So naturally, we were going to return to that in the new novel.
Yeah. After Evan Delaney, Joe Beckett, as we mentioned, Joe is a different kind of character than Evan. What was it that? Where did he come from, and what was the idea for this series of books?
Jo Beckett is she's a medical doctor. She is a forensic psychiatrist, and she consults for the San Francisco Police Department in cases of equivocal death. That's cases where the cops and the medical examiner are stumped. They don't know whether someone's death was accident, natural suicide, or homicide, and they bring in Joe to perform a psychological autopsy and see if they can figure out whether someone ended up under a bus because they tripped over the curb, because they were despondent, or because someone pushed them, that kind of thing. So she has to look through their life. She is the last resort in cases where the rest of the investigators are stumped. And I was fascinated by the idea of someone who would do this forensic work on the mind and look deep into people's hearts and psyches and figure out what had been going on with them and whether someone had decided to end their life. And those stories wouldn't fit with the stories, the Evan Delaney stories, which are about a journalist. So I started a new series and absolutely had a fantastic time writing those novels. And Jo makes a comeback in my third series as well. She makes an appearance in The Dark Corners of the Night, which is one of the Unsub novels.
Nice. What, other than the obvious, the career viewpoint, what did changing series protagonists do for you creatively? Like getting to see these stories, and they're different kinds of stories, but getting to see the characters and the situations through a different protagonist point of view. Did that open new territories for you?
Of course, and it was wonderful. I had to do a tremendous amount of research to find out what the work of forensic psychiatry actually involves, what someone in Jo's position would do, whether she'd be a practice, whether she'd be on faculty at medical school. She's in the story. She's a member of the San Francisco Mobile Crisis Team that goes out when someone's having some kind of a physical or mental crisis, and to really find out what's involved in doing a psychological autopsy, and surrounding her with a whole new cast of characters. She's law enforcement adjacent. She doesn't carry a gun. She's a doctor.
Right.
She becomes friends with the San Francisco Police Department detective. She has a relationship with a pararescueman from the 129th Rescue Wing of the California Air National Guard, which is a fantastic group that that's headquartered at Moffett Field, south of San Francisco. And I got to meet people there. I got to do a lot of research about rock climbing and medicine, and just had really felt like I got to stretch my wings.
Love it. Tell me about your third series, the Unsub series. I've got the first novel, Unsub, on my shelf in the other room, and I haven't gotten to read it yet, but I'm really intrigued by it. What is this series all about?
It's about a young detective, and then who becomes an FBI profiler named Caitlin Hendricks, who hunts serial predators. And Unsub is the FBI term for unknown subject, which means the bad guys that they cannot identify in actual whodunit cases. People like the Zodiac, or who is still unidentified and at large. People like, for years, the Night Stalker, or the Ted Bundy before he was identified. And so all those novels are about this young driven detective who starts by investigating a cold case that has turned hot again in Unsub, the case that broke her father, who was a homicide detective, because he could not solve it. So she gets involved with that. And then she joins the FBI. All the novels in the series have a kernel of true crime at their heart. There's all the cases in the novels were sparked by some real infamous case in the United States, the Zodiac, Ted Bundy, the Night Stalker, and more to come. So they're thrillers, they're psychological suspense, and it's been a revelation to do a lot of the research for that, both studying the predators and the people who hunt them down.
Are you proud of yourself that you keep people from getting good night's sleep?
I love that so much. It warms my heart.
See, now I'm going to have to take the 5 books on my nightstand that I'm currently reading through, and I'm going to push those aside and pick up the first Unsub book. Okay. All right. Heat 2. What an iconic property. Yeah, I remember my wife and I got married in 1994, and we went to see Heat in the theater the next year. And it's one of those stories that just sticks in your mind for, over 25 years now. First off, how did Heat 2 come about? And how did you get connected with Michael Mann to take these characters and this concept and take it to new places forward and backward?
Number one, I've always been a fan of Michael Mann for decades. Number two, was a huge admirer of Heat, which I think is one of the best crime movies, if not the best, and certainly the best heist movie ever made. And Michael had for years thought about expanding the world of Heat. The movie is very intensive. I mean, I know that there are people who are coming to it for the first time if they have not seen it 25, 30, 40 times like I have. And it's about a Highline crew of bank robbers led by Neil McCauley, played by Robert De Niro in the film, and the relentless detective, LAPD homicide detective, who is hunting them, played by Al Pacino. And it's about the high stakes heists they take, and the relentlessness of the investigation, and about how these guys are flip sides of the same coin in a way. They meet and they develop a wary respect and rapport. And then, of course, their worlds collide in a deadly showdown when there's a bank robbery that erupts into a war on the streets of Los Angeles. So it is iconic, it is dramatic, it is moving and exciting, and it takes place over just a few weeks. So as Michael says, it represents a splinter of time in these people's lives, a very intense and climactic period in a way, but he knew who they were. He had written biographies for all the major characters before the movie. He knew where they'd come from, and he knew where he wanted to see where the survivors of the movie might go afterward. That they had a whole lot more life and a lot of stories that could be told for people who really love the film, and he loves the film. Of course, they are his characters; they are dear to his heart. He was very passionate about exploring their world some more, and he wanted to do it as a novel. And he's a filmmaker. He's a wonderful writer. He's extraordinarily accomplished. And all his work was for film and television. So he wanted to collaborate with someone who had experience telling stories in the form of a novel, and writing 100,000 words or 400 pages, and doing it that way. So we have the same literary agent who introduced us after Michael read Unsub and wanted to talk. So we did, and agreed to work together.
What's interesting is that, well, first off, I want to touch on, you described Heat as a heist novel or as a heist movie, and it absolutely is. Is there do heists and thrillers occupy the same space, or if there's a Venn diagram of heist and thrillers, like how much overlap is there in those two genres or subgenres, however you want to look at it?
They overlap, or heist story would be a subset of thrillers. I don't know that Michael would call Heat a heist movie. He doesn't. I don't know that he even would call it a crime movie. I think he calls it a drama, that it's about these people and their work and what drives them through life and their families and their loves and their children and their everything that they've lived for and lost or will lose. A heist story is a particular kind of thriller involving high stakes theft of some kind, burglary, robbery, safe cracking to get the crown jewels out of the vault, but it involves a theft of some sort. So in Heat, that's what McCauley's crew specializes in. The movie opens with them taking down an armored van to steal bearer bonds. At one point they're trying to break into a precious metals depository, and then of course the biggest moment is when they rob a bank in downtown Los Angeles. So heist comes under the banner of thrillers, but there'd better be something that somebody's trying to get their fingers on.
Right. You said that Michael had written biographies for all of these characters, and that Heat was a splinter in time and is just a brief glimpse, a couple of weeks in these characters' entire lives. And so and he wanted to expand on that. Did he have an idea of how he wanted to expand it? And did he and you collaborate on the outline of where the story would go? Were there like tent poles that you guys established, or how did that happen?
There were tent poles. The concept and the idea, the premise for the novel Heat 2, which is a prequel and a sequel, those were Michael's. He already had it very firmly in mind that he wanted to tell stories of McCauley's crew and Hanna's investigations years before Heat, and then move forward in time away from Los Angeles to South America and Southeast Asia, with Chris Shiherlis, who survives the movie. He's played by Val Kilmer, and find out what happens to him after he barely escapes by the skin of his teeth, nearly dead from a gunshot wound, has to leave his family behind, and doesn't know if he'll ever get to see them again, as he's ferreted out of the country. So he wanted to tell it all very dramatically. No long expository sections where you just find out like how they grew up and all this. We're going to drop them like Heat does. We're going to drop you straight into the middle of the action that these investigations, or this score that everybody's involved in Chicago in 7 years before the movie. So he knew that Hanna was working as a homicide detective in Chicago, hunting a crew of home invaders who are really nasty. He knew that McCauley and his crew were in Chicago as well, totally unconnected, seemingly to Hanna, but they were there prepping to take down a savings and loan by tunneling into its underground vault. So there's a tunnel heist involved in that. He knew that there would be a section following that on the U.S.-Mexican border where the crew takes down a cartel stash house for millions of dollars. And we knew that the story was going to move ahead in time, and somehow it was all going to come together again around the turn of the millennium. So he knew that there was going to be a lot of action. There's going to be a lot of drama. And I will tell you that getting the opportunity to write action sequences with Michael Mann in a novel is an experience I will that thrilled me, and I will treasure forever because it was pretty spectacular. But also, this like the movie, the novel has a lot of quieter moments where we find out what these people do when they're not at work, how they're involved with friends, lovers, their families, and how that affects everything about their lives. So it's dramatic. There are some new characters who are either terrifying or wonderful. The home invasion crew is led by a really ruthless guy named Otis Wardell, who is a pretty disgusting villain who I really loved writing. There's some kick-ass women in the story, and I really hope readers will love it.
Yeah, one of the hardest things as a writer to do is to figure out a character's voice and what it is that makes a character jump off the page and seem like a three-dimensional person that we've never met before, but we encounter, on these strange scribbles on a page. Walking into this project, we have voices that we all, as readers, know: Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Val Kilmer, Jon Voight, Tom Sizemore, Ashley Judd,
Danny Trejo, Natalie
Danny
Portman,
Trejo, Natalie
Jenna
Portman. It goes,
Tasteford, Michael T. Williamson, yes, Wes Studi, yeah.
it goes on and on and on. How difficult was it for you as the writer to capture these voices that already exist and already exist in a larger than life way in a lot of our we already know these characters, most of us. How difficult was it to inhabit those voices and to become the creator of those voices?
It was challenging because I know I had to get it right, because Michael knows these people inside and out, knows how they think, how they talk, where they've come from,
Right.
how they view the world, what their goals are. I had to get it. I had to get it right, and I had to move them back and forth in time. So these had to be the same characters, but in the prequel section, they're younger. They're not as mature. They're in several cases they're more volatile. Neil McCauley is not that long out of Folsom Prison and still figuring out how to be in the world. Same with Chris Shiherlis, and they're always looking for somebody coming at him with a shank, even though they're in a diner and getting a pastrami sandwich. So and Hanna, the cop, he's figured out that what he loves is to chase the worst people into unknown places, and that's what makes him go. He's still not quite over, hasn't come to terms with everything that happened during his tour of duty in the Marines in Vietnam. It's the 80s. There's the wildlife going on with that. So fortunately, Michael gave me the space to figure out how to learn to be these people on the page. And if he said, we're not getting their voice right yet, this is not what really makes them go, then he was very generous and patient about that. But I knew we were going to get it. We just had to keep doing it, and that's what revisions are for.
How much interaction was there between you and Michael? Obviously in the plotting phase, and you're setting those tent poles like we talked about earlier. But as you're drafting, was there any interaction back and forth, or was there a finished draft and before you shared that with Michael? How did that interplay work?
The longer we worked together, the more frequently and almost constantly we talked and shared drafts. Initially we spoke about the novel, his ideas, his ambitions for it, how I could help bring my experience as a novelist to dramatize it on the page. We kind of developed a short outline. We sent notes back and forth until after a while I knew I just had to jump into the deep end, and I drafted the first few chapters of the novel and sent them off. So I thought, he's gonna see what my thoughts are here and how I'm writing it, and we'll figure out if that's going to work. And fortunately he did. So I kept going, but I would write a bit and send it to him. He'd he'd make notes, he'd send it back, we'd talk on the phone. We talked constantly. Sometimes when he was in Tokyo, filming Tokyo Vice, and I'm in Austin, Texas, so we juggle the time differences. And by the end of the process, we were alternating chapters or swapping chapters or sending scenes back and forth or pages or paragraphs, and constantly making notes or suggesting where we needed to do a bit more research or revise. And there's hardly a word in the book now that we didn't both turn over and examine and polish, reject, replace, whatever.
As an author who has written multiple series on your own, and those series are 100% your imagination and characters and places and events that you conjured all on your own, and then to move to a project like this that is a heavy collaboration. When you go back to your series, which I'm sure you already are, because we understand how publishing works, and this book's been finished for a year probably. But as you got back into your standard writing routine, what did that collaboration experience bring? We talked earlier about the things that we keep in our writer's toolbox. Were there any new tools that were given to you in that process?
It was wonderful to work with someone who was so experienced in understanding story structure, and who has such a wide and deep imagination, and no fear about expanding the story to great heights in terms of time, in terms of place, in terms of the characters' ambitions. So I think it was daunting, but it was also freeing and elevating to really take on a much bigger world, in the sense of the time period that the story spans, and the geographical area the story spans, and the various worlds the characters inhabit. Whether the Chicago Police Department, the LAPD, ex-con bank robbery crew, working for a crime family in Paraguay, understanding that the world of crime is changing as the world marches on and becoming international. That was all. It was all very bold to write about, and to see that I should have no fear about that was really validating.
Heat 2 is available everywhere now. You can run out and grab it in hardback or Kindle edition or audiobook. The audiobook was narrated by Peter Giles,
Yep.
I believe. I do not envy that man's job in this, and taking these iconic characters and trying to translate them to audiobook. I haven't heard it yet. Have you heard any of the audiobook?
I've heard parts of it, and he does a fantastic job. He's a wonderful actor and a wonderful voice artist. So if you're an audiobook fan, grab it.
Great. Also visit your local bookstore and support local books. However you like to purchase it, we'll have links in the show notes where folks can grab it from Amazon or go visit your local bookstore. Meg, this has been so much fun chatting. If people are just discovering you and all of the work that you do, where can they connect with you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Meg Gardiner1, Meggardiner, numeral 1. On Facebook at Meg Gardiner Books, Instagram at Meg Gardiner1, my website, meggardiner.com. And I love saying hi to readers and talking about books and writing. So seek me out.
Excellent. We're going to send everyone to see you. Meg, thank you so much for taking time to come on the show.
My pleasure. It was wonderful to talk to you.